Hello, Uncle Harry.
Hello.
Hello, Mom.
Hi, sweetie.
Also known as Jennifer. Hello, Nana. Also known as Clare.
Hi.
Let's go straight down the line. And where were you born and raised? Not a hospital, but like the house.
74 Montgomery Street.
156 West Canton Street, where I still live.
Bradford Street.
This group is especially special because you are one of the Hayes brothers who lived in this general vicinity of Dartmouth, Tremont, Montgomery, West Canton. You're a separate generation who grew up around the time when everything was in the process of gentrification. And you, Nana, you were you were raised in another part of the South End where there was the big Lebanese community. Right. So that is unique to all of the others.
Sorry, the cat just walked in front of the camera.
Sorry. Our cats will just be like, be
Yeah,
cats.
cut that part out.
Yeah, just walking behind.
Alright. What cultural changes have you observed in all your years of living here? In the South End.
Cultural,
Yes.
I think we had, of course, just a regular group of people that were in the area. But then we had ethnicity, I think that's what you're referring to. Yeah, and that, I would say that you have a higher level of intellect than we had initially back in the 40s, 50s. Another planet, another time.
How about you?
I find that when I was growing up, there were a lot of families who lived, single family home. The kids all hung around in the neighborhood, went to school in the neighborhood or locally enough that they could walk. And you always had friends outside to play with. The kids hung out. We rode our bikes on the street. We roller skated. We used all the neighbors' steps to play house. We played outs off the steps. We, before they brought the bricks back, we played Foursquare. And there was a move of families out of the neighborhood for a certain amount of time. And I'm now seeing families moving back in with little kids. The difference I'm noticing is that, like your generation and the little kids who are here now, they go to school all over the place. You don't have as central a neighborhood full of kids like we used to, because kids go off and have play dates with friends from school or after school programs. It could be wherever they're going to school or in a different section of the city, where growing up, that's not getting into ethnicity so much, but a different aspect of culture with the family unit staying in the South End instead of moving around elsewhere in neighboring cities and towns.
How about you, Nana?
Building on that, I won't repeat, I think you don't mean cultural so much as you mean socioeconomic and demographic changes.
Yes, I was just putting it into layman's terms.
I think of those as relatively layman's terms, but the difference between,
Sorry.
okay, the difference between then and now, the neighborhood has changed significantly. The ethnic groups that were in the South End when Harry and I were growing up are no longer here as ethnic groups. As a matter of fact, Harry can probably attest to the fact and agree with me that almost all of the people we grew up with chose to leave. They weren't forced out, they chose to leave the South End. The South End was a place where people came for many years to start their lives, earn money, and move out. We were unusual under that category because we chose to stay here. We saw the advantages of living in this particular kind of urban community, right, Harry?
Yes, definitely, sure.
Where others saw it as a detriment. We didn't have and didn't want big lawns, kids bused to school, dependence on automobiles to get where we needed to go.
Back then, you had the orange line going overhead.
We had the orange line going overhead, and now we have the orange line on the surface.
Yeah.
But we're still, quite happy to be able to move around without dependence on automobiles and fulfill all our basic needs. The demographic changes include just a totally different kind of social set. Most of the people who lived here, families, great families while we were growing up, were middle and lower middle income people. They left the community under this term gentrification, if you will, either because they were forced out by a variety of factors. Their houses burned down. They couldn't afford to keep their houses. The banks wouldn't lend money, insurance companies wouldn't insure them, and so they were forced out. But many chose, chose to leave and go to what they thought of as greener pastures.
Do either you, Uncle Harry, or Mom have anything more to say
About that question,
At all?
Yeah.
or in general?
About that question?
No, I think Nana answered that
Did
pretty
you on the
completely.
nose? What have you seen happen to different ethnic groups from, say, the 40s to now? Okay.
You mean location, how, were they still located within this area?
Yeah.
We had quite a few groups moved, well, singular groups that I recall, black population that I dealt with and lived around. Wanted to stay and went and ran into problems, and again, as Clare laid out there. And at the same time, there was an element, again, a white element, gradually moving into the area, and it didn't matter if it was, any kind of street, and they were the forerunners of what was going to happen in this area. And pretty interesting. They thought initially they were dragging us up by our ears or whatever, and they were better educated, whether they were or not, I don't know. Certainly had more money, as attested to, as you see, you looked at different streets and see people completely changed buildings, rooming houses to small apartment units, to whole floors being two, and sometimes one person would take an entire floor. never, wasn't even heard of, and people would change things to keep up with, I guess, what was going on in the suburbs at the time. And people were forced to move further and further away to get a better economic, I guess the better economics of either buying a house that had been rehabilitated or buying the house and built. You had to pay less for that house. And, that was the biggest noticeable thing. There was a split, somewhat of a split in the population, in that groups of the population were strong people and knitting the area together. No doubt. In some cases, people suggested, well, in a place called the South End House, he said, oh, or called a name approximate. And a lot of people thought, well, don't need those people anymore. Things are going to be changed. The schools are going to be upgraded. And whether it happened to the very good, it did happen.